The Wellness Show, episode 114.
Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyson Bannigan, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. So welcome to The Wellness Show, and today I have Martin Pytela with me. He's been in the wellness profession for a long time. We just met recently again, and he had some very interesting things to say about the last 20 pounds I'm trying to get off my body. And it was an interesting perspective because he was talking about the type of body I had and my genetic background and where I may have been, maybe that I had the Viking blood in my being. So it was an interesting way of looking at things because I'm used to working with professionals that look at wellness and vitality, a lot of it from what I call a sociological or philosophical point of view, where it has to do a lot with your mental attitude, falling in love with your body, being responsible for your diet and all this. But Martin, you have a much more integrative scientific approach to this, which I find very, very exciting. And I know you've been doing this for a long time. So tell us a bit about who you are and how you got into this.
Yes, thank you, Tyson. Yes, I will probably have to answer about 20 different ways what you just opened up with. But just to say is I'm the CEO and the founder of Life Enthusiast, an online business where we help people with chronic inflammatory conditions. Those are the conditions that the Western medicine doesn't do well with, the fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and rheumatoid arthritis and the long litany of problems that they just cannot fix. They are really good at fixing emergency room stuff, but they are terrible at preventing these emergencies from arising. I'm one of the people who needed the help. The reason I'm in this business is because I was my own first case when I was starting out. My education really is an MBA with business administration and computer science, and I would have merrily stayed in the data and business management if it weren't for the fact that I fell apart. I fell apart thanks to mercury poisoning that I picked up in a dentist's office. Wouldn't you know?
Wow.
The ignorance runs really deep. So that was back in 1977. And
that's
so
a long time ago. So you've been
the next
for quite a while.
Well, the next 10 years after 1977, I was declining. I was just going downhill. Dental problems and back problems, plantar fasciitis and carpal tunnel syndrome and fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, allergies, weight gain, obesity. It all just started going. Like I was going to pieces gradually, worse and worse. And I was trying to go see the professionals. I saw first the orthopedic surgeon, then the chiropractor, then the naturopath. And I was not getting better, so I started seeing esoteric therapies, Bowen therapy, Feldenkrais. I tried all kinds of weird things. I have a long list on my website of all the things I've tried. What really is going on here is that so long as you treat symptoms rather than the causes, you're not going to get ahead with anything that's chronic and inflammatory in origin. As long as you're staying with the symptom, you're ignoring what's causing the symptom. Einstein said it beautifully. If you cannot fix the problem you're creating with the mindset with which you created it.
So what is chronic inflammation? What is that? How does it come about?
Inflammation has 5 symptoms: redness, swelling, heat, pain, and loss of function. So the typical ones we have, no, I'm not saying it well. The body will use inflammation to fix a problem. If I smack myself on my thumb with a hammer, I will feel the pain and it will swell and it will throb, and the body will send the repair guys, which means raise the voltage, send in the repairs, and so on. So that's an acute problem. A chronic problem is when you have micro injuries. Visualize million tiny little hammers pecking at you throughout the whole system. And so you're causing micro injuries every day, all the time, and the body sends the repair mechanism to that. So now you have body parts that are swelling and hurting, and depending on which body part's fallen apart, the doctors will name it. Like they will name it rheumatoid arthritis if your joints are going to heck. They will call it vitiligo if your pigment is disappearing. They will call it multiple sclerosis if the myelinization of your nerves is going. They will call it autism if it's affecting your brain. I could name 200 named conditions, each of which they classify by the body part that's falling apart.
Mm.
And the inflammation itself is a histamine-mediated. Histamine is the signaling molecule of this inflammation, or of this, let's fix something, affect somewhere. So it could affect the female reproductive organs. It could be obesity. It can affect your circulatory system and give you high blood pressure. And on and on. That's inflammation, chronic inflammation.
So I get that. So it is really the underlying symptom or the underlying condition for multiple symptoms that are diagnosed according to, like you said, the part of the body that's that it's affected.
Right. Yeah, almost everything other than an acute injury caused by physical harm or an infectious illness caused by invading microorganisms.
Wow. So this is a huge, widespread problem. So then what is the source of this? Is it because of our diets or our lack of vitamins, or give us some clue about why is this?
Right. Well, we're living in an interesting experiment, the industrial lifestyle. The industrial agriculture is producing industrial foods that are causing industrial medical problems that the industrial medical system is trying to fix. And there are 4 major inputs that we can control and some others that we cannot control. So we could start with genetics. There is definitely a genetic issue. Like I myself, for instance, have the MTHFR mutation, which many people do. 30% of population have one parent with it. 30% have 2 parents with it. 60% have one parent with it. And it diminishes your ability to convert food into energy and also the ability to detoxify. So I tire easily, and I don't make a good long distance runner. I can make a sprint and then I have to sit down and recover.
Mm.
There are some good things with it. It's highly productive people, musical talent, linguistic talent, and all kinds of things that come with it. You know, just about everything that we encounter has its sunny side and shadow side.
Mm-hmm.
There's the yin and the yang of it, right?
Right.
So the yang of it is that I don't detoxify well, and over time, I can get bad. Which, if you end up with the mercury toxicity like I did, I was not able to get rid of it. I was falling apart instead. And many people, as I just gave you the statistics, will have that problem.
And so that's like 60% with 2, was it? And 30%?
No, 1/3 has one third has both parents,
Yeah, okay.
and 2/3 have at least one parent with this genetic mutation.
Wow, that's a huge. I mean, and if obesity is now 50% of the American population, then a large part
Right.
of that would be attributed to the statistics that you're talking about too.
Right. And so let's talk about the contributing factors, right?
Right.
So genetics is definitely a part of it. But epigenetics trumps genetics, which is the environment. What happens at the cellular level is triggered by what's coming at the cell.
Right.
A gene can be activated or inactivated. It can be turned on or turned off. And so if you turn on the get fat gene, then you're going to get fat. If you turn on the get cancer gene, you're going to get cancer. If you're going to turn on the get a heart attack, you're going to get a heart attack. And how do you turn these on? So the inputs, I have the famous four: toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma. The trauma, that would be the invisible stuff: emotional trauma from childhood, abuse. You can get damaged in two ways: either a large, impactful event or a whole lot of small things, the drip method. But
Yeah.
somehow you
Hammer
can
and the
definitely...
little hammers.
Yes, that's right. But anyway, in your subconscious, you will have a program. The program will run. And this is where the I love myself versus not, or
Right.
I hold a grudge against me, the universe, the whatever, my transgressors, that will all affect how I express myself through my reality.
And that's
So there's the
certainly
trauma.
that's certainly the area that I'm used to working in, and I know that has a lot of value. But that's only one part of the four-pronged approach that you have.
Yeah,
So what are
right.
the other ones?
So the stagnation essentially is lack of movement. We are originally designed for walking about 20 kilometers or 15 miles a day, carry water or hunt something, put it on our backs and haul it back to the cave or something of the sort. We're supposed to move. We're supposed to exercise. And the main issue is the lymphatic system. The lymph doesn't have its own pump, and it only moves when you move your body against gravity. It's like the proverbial shaker in the bartender's hand. When you shake it against gravity, the fluid moves up and down. So a sedentary person doesn't move, therefore stagnates. And the difference between a running stream and a swamp is that the swamp is putrefying.
Yeah, 15 kilometers is a lot. I
Yeah, oh yeah.
was 4.5 kilometers every second day, and I thought I was doing fine. And that's,
I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you're doing badly. It's just that we are built for doing much more.
No, I'm just saying
the
that
10,000.
that's a lot, and that normally I would think that we would need that much activity. But I get the point that you're making. The way that we've changed our lifestyle from 15 kilometers a day to 0 is pretty dramatic.
Right. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm using a mini trampoline. I have a rebounder in my office, and I do a 12 to 15 minute routine on it every day, which seems to hold me in a reasonable shape.
Yeah,
At least I
have a vibrating machine too, which I love, which also I'm sure would move the lymph as well. So there are things that can help us, but I guess the best one is probably, or one of the better ones, is just go for a walk.
The walking works really well. The vibration machine is a really interesting tool, so long as you're using it on the slow mode, 5 cycles per second. If you use it at the high end, like 20 cycles per second, it moves faster than the flaps in the lymphatic pathways can open and close. So make sure that you use, at least for a while, on the slow vibration. Anyway, so that was my stagnation.
Yeah.
And then the malnutrition. You're supposed to be getting certain nutrients into your body, and it can get complex. The number one issue is the industrial agriculture is depleting our soils. They are using NPK, as in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizer to grow the plants faster. So they grow bigger, they look pretty, but on the inside they're hollow.
Mm-hmm.
They are hollow in the sense that the mineralization is deficient and the pigmentation is deficient and so on. It looks good, but the nutrients are missing.
And of course, we end up maybe looking good and being nutrient deficient as well, or not so good, depending.
Yeah, look at me, I'm totally nutrient deficient and I'm working hard at it.
Uh-huh.
I shouldn't be looking like this. I should be looking 20 years younger.
And why do you say that? Because you've actually been able to demonstrate to yourself by taking the right vitamins that you do reverse aging? Is that what you've experienced?
Yes, it can be done. But, I'm already a cracked pot. I've had all this damage done to me.
Right.
So it's harder to work against it. Plus, of course, the genetic issues. So I now understand it better.
Right.
If I knew then what I know now, I would for sure be doing better than this.
Right. Yeah, I find that fascinating because, there is evidence, certainly in my experience, of taking some trace minerals and actually seeing the actual physical changes in the body. And that's pretty amazing that you can attribute it to one particular thing that you're taking. So
anyway, malnutrition, it shows up. You can see these ridges on the fingernails or other ways, the glow on the skin. Is it healthy looking or is it not so great and so on? Well, anyway, complications.
Yes.
So the malnutrition as such has many aspects. The food itself, the quality of the food, but also the selection of the food. This is the topic that you highlighted where I was talking about biological individuality, how genetics predetermine what's right or not right. I'll come back to this in just a moment. I just want to finish on the other point, which was toxicity.
Right.
And toxicity, again, industrial age, especially in the urban settings. My particular toxicity was the mercury load I picked up, 12 amalgam fillings, mercury amalgam fillings. I used to be a very healthy, strong young fellow, but several years after that, I was falling apart in a major way. And so anyway, mercury is terribly damaging, so is lead. Cadmium you pick up from cigarette smoke. Mercury is in the air from coal burning or from vaccines or from this dental installation I've had. So that's just the heavy metals. They are really strong disruptors. But you could have other things, the volatile organic compounds, the metal dust from brake pads of the automobiles. So if you're living in the city and you commute in and out in traffic, you're inhaling the brake pads dust and the tires dust and the whatever else is going on around. So as time goes on, you're becoming more and more toxic. And our original design is not built for the urban living. So we need to find some ways to get rid of all of this. And there are two aspects, cleansing and detoxifying. The cleansing is the general sweep of the digestive system, the colon, the lungs, and so on. Detox is deeper. You need to actually find things that have been sequestered. Your body actually hides things. And this is an interesting thing, like the heavy metals, they are being hidden in places of low circulation, which starts with fat. Mm-hmm. It's your fat on your belly and your hips, but also your brain is made of fat. And then cartilage and bones. So your physical structure will get challenged by heavy metals big time. So we have processes. I had to learn all of this because I was my own case, and then I figured out that I wasn't at all not untypical. In fact, there are millions of people in as much trouble as I was and more. So Hence the business. I had to learn it, and so now I get to share it. I get to help people do the reversal, reverse the toxicity, learn about stagnation and undo it with exercise, figure out about trauma and undo it with practices like EFT is one of the methods. There are many others. And lastly, the nutrition.
Wow, that's a lot, and that's a really good overview of what you do. So we have about 4 minutes to go, 4.5 minutes to go. So I think it would really help to give an idea of what you offer your clients when they come to you, because you really can do a full-scale analysis to help them get from where they are to where they want to go. So
Right.
I think that would be useful.
Right. I try to focus on things that we can do something about. Like we could discuss genetics and do genetic testing, but it doesn't really do anything good because you can't do anything about the genes.
Mm-hmm.
So we focus on things you can actually change. Nutrition is one of those things that you can change. We have a system called metabolic typing. There's an online quiz, about 120 multiple choice questions. When you answer all of that, it will show us your endocrine dominance and your metabolic dominance. Endocrine dominance predetermines how you're going to lose weight or gain weight. Like there are some people who gain weight with fats, and there are some people who gain weight with starches. And you need to know which you are, because if you're going to put yourself on a low-starch diet, high-fat diet, it works for the thyroid dominant, but it's completely counterproductive for the adrenal dominant. And to slim down somebody who's pituitary dominant, you have to put them on a really strong red meat, organ meat diet, which is so counterintuitive for most of the spiritual practices.
Mm-hmm.
So once we determine what the person is, we also understand how to manage their pH balance. The interesting thing with the pH is that when you drift into acidity, you become short-tempered and quick to anger, road rage on the extreme. Whereas when you over-alkalize, you first become procrastinating and then despondent and finally anxious and depressed. And so these divergences can be corrected with how you balance your meals, whether it's more fat and protein or more carbohydrates. Of course, you need to go for not for refined foods. There are these 5 things that we shouldn't eat. Nobody should. Refined salt, sugar, flour, oil, fried food, all of that. Those are the common sense things. But once you get beyond that, you need to understand which foods and which minerals and which combinations you should have. And this is dictated by how your ancestors lived. Your ancestors genetically pre-selected. Like if they lived somewhere cold, like Norway, they ate a lot of salmon and reindeer, as opposed to if they lived somewhere in northern Italy, where they had ready access to vegetables and bread and so on. Or if they lived in North Africa, where they lived on dates, figs, and pomegranates and camel milk.
Mm-hmm.
So one group ate high starch, high sugar diet, the other sort of medium, and the third one quite high protein, high fat. And whatever genetics pop through as the dominant, you need to support that. And if you eat against it, it's not going to work. So I tell people, well, yoga was invented in India, where there was 365-day easy access to tropical fruit. It's really easy to be a vegetarian when you live in tropics. Not so easy if you're living in Eskimo climate.
Right. And also, if you're living in the tropics like that or in India, then, the amount of sweating you're doing and excreting and getting rid of toxins is totally different as well.
Right. Yes, that too.
Doing it in
so in my business at Life Enthusiast, that's life-enthusiast.com, we try and help people who are willing to make the change. We have found effective foods, effective superfoods. We make our own. The sort of products we offer are a cut above average. It's not found in a common health store. And it's we focus on the basics, the structured water, the filtered air, the healthy, substantial foods, and especially knowing what to do.
Well, it sounds very exciting, and it sounds very thorough. So what's the average cost for doing this a basic baseline inventory that you would want the client to go through before you did any prescriptions?
Well, I'm just a nutritionist and a health coach, so I don't prescribe, I don't do medicine. I just help people understand what will make them healthier as opposed to what will make them sicker, which is, of course, readily applicable to all of these chronic inflammatory diseases.
Right.
I work with people with people at whatever level they're able. If they are able to put $100 into their get well budget, then we work with that a month, or 200 or 300 or 500. I can accommodate almost anything. The deeper the hole that you're in, the more intensity you need to apply to it to dig out of it.
Right. So it's really up to you. But the point that you're making is that you can start at any level with whatever money you have and at least start the process, right?
Right. There are some really important high leverage things you can do. Like I mentioned, the MTHFR, methylation, a universal methyl donor food like bioavailable sulfur, also known as MSM, costs you only $10 a month and will make gigantic difference in energy levels. Fulvic acid for people who are toxic at $10 a month will make a huge difference. And we of course, we have better. We have stronger and fancier and
quicker and more expensive, but the basics still work.
Right.
Yeah, those things do. I mean, I don't know a lot about sulfur. I do know about the other aspect you were talking about. But so basically, these are ways. Well, the sulfur is really, if I understand correctly, is really increasing your energy. Is it not?
Sulfur specifically is helping the oxygen to cross the cellular membrane. So that means oxygen in and toxins out. So it empowers the energy exchanges in the body.
Right. So you're going to get more energy as a result because your whole respiratory system is working more effectively. Is that correct?
Yeah. By that we mean cellular respiration as opposed to lung.
Right.
Right.
Your ability to absorb and to release.
Yeah. Conversion of food into energy and detoxification. So of course it will enable, once you detoxify at the cellular level, great many health problems go away.
Yes. So we're at 29 minutes and we've got about 30 seconds to go. So once again, how do people get hold of you? How do they start this journey with you?
They can go to the website, Life, Life-Enthusiast, ENTHUSIAST.com, or call me, 866-543-3388.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show. I know there's lots to talk about. I mean, I have 150,000 questions that I'd like to ask you just from the short conversation we have. So we'll probably have to have you back. I know you have your own podcast, which has some deep analysis, so I encourage people to go take a look at that as well. So thank you, Martin, for being on the show and starting us on this journey.
Thank you, Tyson. I'm so grateful that you reached out and invited me to talk to you and your listeners.
All right, bye for now.
Bye-bye.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca. and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.